আমি আমি মোহাম্মদ হুমায়ুন কবির, স্ট্যান্ডার্ড গ্রুপ, সিনিয়র ম্যানেজার, প্রকিউরমেন্ট এন্ড সাপ্লাই।
আমি মোহাম্মদ মসলেম আলী, স্কয়ার ফ্যাশন লিমিটেড, এক্সিকিউটিভ অ্যাক্সেসরিজ স্টোর।
আমি সাগরময় বড়ুয়া, আমি আছি বাংলাদেশ এডিবল অয়েলে সিনিয়র অফিসার, লোকাল পার্সন।
আমি মোহাম্মদ রেজাউল করিম, স্কয়ার ফ্যাশন লিমিটেড, সিনিয়র এক্সিকিউটিভ।
ঠিক আছে উস্তাদ, চিনছি আপনারে।
চিনছি
বড় উস্তাদ কো মুসলিম?
এখনো তো পাইনি, স্যারের কোনো লাইনে আছে স্যার।
আমি মোহাম্মদ মনিরুজ্জামান, জেনারেল ম্যানেজার বিআরবি কেবলস।
আসসালামু আলাইকুম, আমার নাম মারুফ, আমি বেঙ্গল এয়ারলিফট গ্রুপে সিইও হিসেবে কাজ করতেছি। থ্যাংক ইউ এভরিওয়ান।
থ্যাংক ইউ ভাই, থ্যাংক ইউ।
হ্যালো, আমি আব্দুল্লাহ সাফি, আমি হেড অফ সাপ্লাই চেইন হিসেবে আছি র্যাঙ্কন অটোমোবাইলস এবং র্যাঙ্কন ট্রাকস এন্ড বাসেস।
আমি এমডি আবু জাফর, স্কয়ার ফ্যাশন ম্যাটেরিয়াল ম্যানেজমেন্ট।
হ্যাঁ উস্তাদ, চিনছি উস্তাদ।
ডেপুটি
স্যার,
ম্যানেজার
আসসালামু
হিসেবে
আলাইকুম।
আছে।
সালাম আলাইকুম।
ওয়ালাইকুম সালাম।
আসসালামু আলাইকুম সবাইকে, আমার নাম তাওকির আহমেদ খান, আমি ইয়ামা মোটরসাইকেল বাংলাদেশ টেকনিক্যাল টিমে হেড হিসেবে আছি।
আসসালামু আলাইকুম, আমি হাসিবুর রহমান, ওয়ার হোসেন লজিস্টিক ডিপার্টমেন্টে আছি, ডিবিএল গ্রুপ।
আরো অনেকে আছেন, 7-8 জন তো দেখা যাচ্ছে।
আসসালামু আলাইকুম, আমি মোহাম্মদ রাকিবুল হাসান, সিনিয়র এক্সিকিউটিভ, আমি আছি চেক পয়েন্ট সিস্টেমস বাংলাদেশ লিমিটেড।
অ্যাকচুয়ালি আমার এটা দেওয়ার আগে আমি একটু কথাটা, মনির ভাই ফ্রম চেক পয়েন্ট। হ্যালো,
হ্যাঁ জি প্লিজ।
মনির ভাই, দিস ইজ লাবণী। আর ইউ নো মি মনির ভাই?
ইয়েস ইয়েস।
চিনতে পারছেন মনির ভাই?
হ্যাঁ চিনতে পেরেছি।
নাইস টু সি ইউ। ওকে, আসসালামু আলাইকুম, আমি হচ্ছে শারমিন লাবণী from Shatan Textile Limited, commercial manager. Okay, thank you.
I need to move to power.
হ্যালো, আমি আরিফুর রহমান, DGM operation, Mashiki Textile Limited.
Good evening to everyone. আমি সজিবুর রহমান সজল, আমি বেসিক্যালি মেকানিক্যাল ইঞ্জিনিয়ার ফ্রম চুয়েট। আমি কারেন্টলি আছি স্কয়ার ফার্মাসিউটিক্যালস এর টেকনিক্যাল সার্ভিস ডিপার্টমেন্টে।
কেন?
আসসালামু আলাইকুম।
ওয়ালাইকুম আসসালাম স্যার।
ওয়ালাইকুম আসসালাম।
আসসালামু আলাইকুম।
শোনা যাচ্ছে? আমি আসলে বুঝতে পারছি না, ওখানে কি শোনা যাচ্ছে আপনাদের? ক্লিয়ার ভয়েস, ভিডিও
শোনা যাচ্ছে?
আচ্ছা, থ্যাংক ইউ। আসসালামু আলাইকুম। First of all, big apologies. Sorry for the delay because of the connection issues. I was having a hard time connecting to the link. Video on আছে ওদিকে? ভিডিও আচ্ছা, স্ক্রিন দেখা যাচ্ছে? স্লাইড ক্লিয়ারলি?
জি ভাইয়া, ক্লিয়ারলি দেখা যাচ্ছে।
জি দেখা যাচ্ছে।
কিন্তু ভাইয়া আপনি একটু প্রেজেন্টেশন মোডে দিয়ে দেন, এখনো এটা মনে হয় ভিউ মোডে আছে।
আচ্ছা, আমি স্ক্রিন শেয়ার করছি। প্রেজেন্টেশন মোডে গেলে কি ভালো হবে?
জি, মানে তখন আমরা আরো বেটার ভাবে দেখতে পারবো। এখন যেটা হচ্ছে ফুল স্ক্রিনের অনলি 40% আমরা দেখতে পাচ্ছি, রেস্ট অফ দি থিংস আমরা দেখতে পাচ্ছি না।
আচ্ছা আচ্ছা আচ্ছা, আমার এখানে আমি প্রেজেন্টেশন মোডটা আমি দেখতে পাচ্ছি না আমার ইয়েতে। কেউ কি একটু গাইড করতে পারবে এখানে?
স্যার
স্ক্রিনের উপরে
স্লাইড শোতে গেলে মনে হয় হবে। স্লাইড
শোতে
স্ক্রিনে হাত দিয়ে জুম করলে কিন্তু জুম হয়ে যাচ্ছে পিকচারটা। স্যার
এখন কি অবস্থা?
কোনো সেম অবস্থা।
সেম না
স্যার? আমার মনে হয় শুরু করলে তারপরে আস্তে আস্তে।
না, আমার মনে হয় কি আমরা একটু জুম করে দেখে নিব, অসুবিধা নাই। যদি এটাই আপনার স্লাইড হয় অসুবিধা নাই, আমরা জুম করে দেখি।
জি, জুম করলে হয়ে যাচ্ছে বড়।
আমি কেন 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 জানি এখানে ফুল স্ক্রিনটা ইয়ে হচ্ছে না জুমে, এটা পুরো এক্সপ্যান্ড হচ্ছে না আর কি এটা স্ক্রিন।
অসুবিধা নাই, we will manage somehow. You can proceed. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Assalamu alaikum and good evening everyone. Welcome back once again to the session on the introduction to supply chain management. So basically, this is the session where we are going to look at the basics of a supply chain. Amra shuru korar age just a quick question. Is there anyone who is working with a designation of supply chain? It can be supply chain manager, supply chain analyst, supply chain developer. Anybody having such designation which goes with supply chain?
Yes, I am.
Okay. Could you please share what is your exact designation?
I am head of supply chain of Rankon Automobiles and Rankon Trucks and Buses. I'm looking after two companies, complete supply chain.
Okay, okay, wonderful. So do you have any manufacturing or do you do the assembling?
Yeah, we are doing assembling. We have a KD assembly plant, and we are assembling bus, trucks, especially light commercial vehicles in
Okay.
truck segment, and also the bus. We are importing bus in KD, and then we are assembling it.
Interesting. So anybody else in supply chain working as a supply chain?
Yes, sir. This is Munwar.
Supply chain professional?
I'm acting as a head of supply chain for Rfid.
শোনা যাচ্ছে না, একটু রিপিট করবেন?
আমি মনোয়ার, আমি হেড অফ সাপ্লাই চেইন হিসেবে ব্রডকাস্ট গ্রুপে আছি।
আচ্ছা আচ্ছা আচ্ছা, মাশাআল্লাহ। তো কত বছর ধরে আছেন ওখানে?
আমি 3 বছর যাবত সাপ্লাই চেইনে।
আচ্ছা, তো আপনাদের সাপ্লাই চেইনের মেইন ফোকাসটা কি? এখানে কি ইম্পোর্ট এক্সপোর্ট অথবা ট্রেডিং অথবা এটা কি ম্যানুফ্যাকচারিং? ইন হোয়াট পার্ট অফ দ্য সাপ্লাই চেইন আর ইউ ওয়ার্কিং?
আমাদের বেসিক্যালি আইটি বেস কোম্পানি, সো আমরা আইটি ইকুইপমেন্ট উপরে ইম্পোর্ট আছে, আমাদের বেশি কিছু ইম্পোর্ট আছে এবং লোকাল সাপ্লাই দিতে হয়।
আচ্ছা আচ্ছা, থ্যাংক ইউ। এনিবডি এলস? Okay, okay. So আমরা discussionটা, we will try to trim down the discussion in a way so that everybody, whether you are working in a supply chain position or you are not, it doesn't matter. It will be something that of interest or something of your relevance. You'll find it somehow connected to your professional life. So first of all, before we move on, let me introduce myself first. My name is Dr. Asif Salam. I have been teaching across a couple of universities in Canada and as well as across parts of Asia, like in Middle East and as well as in Southeast Asia. So I have been involved in the supply chain and consultancy and training, as well as into the research. So we have been working across different companies in different parts of the continents, and they are all involved in service and manufacturing supply chains across different sectors. So what we will do, we'll try to get to know each of you, but today is the first day and we will have more sessions to come. Hopefully we will get to know each other as we have more convenient time available to exchange our views and our backgrounds. So to jump quickly, my backgrounds are, you can see that I have been into consultancy and as well as I've been working with the United Nations in the Food and Agriculture Organization and as well as World Food Program. So basically supply chain is my career, and this is where I have been working since last 23 years. So these are the few of the companies that you see here in front of you on the screen. These are basically, most of them are North American companies, but they are also having their business and some sort of presence across different continents. And also, I think some of them directly or indirectly are engaged with companies in Bangladesh as well. So when we talk about the supply chain, basically the supply chain is a process where we are looking at integration of multiple functions across the different business processes. And it sometimes, when we look at the basic supply chain, we have got a supplier, manufacturer, distributor, retailer, and to the customer. But sometimes we have to also get beyond what we see here at the basic supply chain, where we have got extended supply chain. So in the extended supply chain, we may have supplier, like tier 1, tier 2, tier 3 supplier, or even more. And in also on the downstream, we also have got customers who could be tier 1, tier 2, tier 3 customers and beyond. So this is basically a basic flow. So when we look at the supply chain, as we see here, there are different interactions are happening within the parties involved in the supply chain. So there are 3 basic flows that we will see in any supply chain, whether it can be a fast-moving consumer goods supply chain, it could be a food supply chain, it could be electronic supply chain, any kind of supply chain across the board. There will be 3 kind of flows involved. Can anyone tell me what kind of 3 flows we might experience in a supply chain? Anyone? What kind of flows or what kind of flow of things that we might expect in a supply chain? What is your take on this? Anyone? Any? You can guess. What kind of flow?
Actually, suppliers থেকে manufacturer, distributor, retailer and customer. This is the basic concept. কিন্তু এখানে প্রোডিউসার বা ম্যানুফ্যাকচারের কাছ থেকে আলটিমেট ইউজার অথবা সাপ্লায়ারের কাছ থেকে ম্যানুফ্যাকচারের কাছে যাওয়ার জন্য যে কাজটি সেটাই সাপ্লাই চেনের। এখানে এই কাজটি করার জন্য বিভিন্ন পার্টিস বা বিভিন্ন পক্ষ যারা রিলেটেড আছে তারা প্রত্যেকেই ডাইরেক্টলি অর ইনডাইরেক্টলি ইনভলভ ইন দ্য সাপ্লাই চেন ম্যানেজমেন্ট।
Okay, wonderful, brilliant. What's your name, please?
Moniruzaman.
Moniruzaman. So thank you, Moniruzaman. So exactly what we have just heard from Moniruzaman. এখানে আসলে when we look at the interactions, এর মধ্যে আসলে তিনটা বেসিক ফ্লো, তিনটা জিনিস এখানে ফ্লো করে সব সময়। একটা হচ্ছে যে ম্যাটেরিয়ালস ফ্লো। Material could be raw materials, it could be work in process material, or it could be finished goods materials. এই তিনটার মধ্যে ফার্স্ট হলো ম্যাটেরিয়ালস ফ্লো। আর সেকেন্ড টাইপ অফ ফ্লো ইন সাপ্লাই চেইন আমরা যেটা দেখবো সব সময় যে ইনফরমেশন ফ্লো। Information is the key to connect every entities in the supply chain. তো এই যে সাপ্লাই চেইনে যে আমাদের এক একটা যে লেয়ার, এই যে সাপ্লায়ার, ম্যানুফ্যাকচারার, ডিস্ট্রিবিউটর, এই এক একটা লেয়ারকে কানেক্ট করার জন্য we must have information platform. তো এখানে the information flow, it goes back and forth, but the material flow go from upstream to the downstream. On the other side, the third flow we will have always in the supply chain. What can be the third flow? What is your take on this? 3 number flow ki hote pare?
Cash flow.
Cash flow, brilliant.
Yeah.
Wonderful. Ki naam?
It's both way.
Sheikh
Sorry.
Alamin.
Yeah, Sheikh MD Alamin. Sir, I have done your class previously already.
Yes.
But today I have willingly add your class because
Okay.
I very much
Thank you.
fond of your class, sir.
Thank you. Thank you. So the third flow is the cash flow, or we can call it the payment flow. Payment is the bottom line. Without the payment, nothing will move, right? So the money have to move. So,
Dr. Asif, I have one thing to ask.
Yes.
You
Yes,
said
please go ahead.
in the first you said only material flow. What about service?
Service flows are also there, but we don't bring that flow in this discussion now, because there are different kinds of service. For example, there is a transportation service, there is also warehousing service, there is also distribution service. There are different kinds of services involved. So we have 2 kinds of activities, like one is the primary, the other one is the supporting. So the service flow comes here as the supporting flow, as the supporting activities. Could I make myself clear, Nazimuddin?
I'll take it as I take it as a material and service flow, the first one.
Okay.
Goods and services from producer to ultimate user. This is actually services flow are interrelated to the logistics.
Exactly. So the service will come in different forms and shape, because service is kind of it's an integral part of the process. So without the service, nothing can happen. So basically, the service, we take it as a constant, and it will be there always in entire supply chain process. So one of the key ingredients that we see. একটু আওয়াজ হচ্ছে, শোনা যাচ্ছে না পরিষ্কার। Can you hear me? Am I
Yes, sir.
Okay, you can mute your microphone if you have sounds going, so that everybody then don't get distracted. All right. So here, when we look at the logistics and supply chain, now I want to hear from you. What is the connection between logistics and supply chain? Where is logistics and where is supply chain?
Logistic playing a vital role to receive and payment or supplier to the goods or materials or anything which is involved in the supply chain.
Exactly. So there are three things again. When we talk about the supply chain, there are layers in the supply chain. There are logistics management, there is operations management, and also there are physical distribution management. So when we are looking at the supply chain, the decisions that we make at the supply chain level, that is a strategic level decision, and that is the decision which is made with the objective to integrate the processes to create value for the end user or end customer. But when we look at this logistical function, this is where, let's say, for example, it could be the job of a 3PL, third-party logistics service provider, where they take a part of the role of the supply chain, and they facilitate the mechanism, the flow of certain goods and materials to one point. Let's say, for example, when we talk about the warehouse management or distribution center management, so there are multiple activities that are happening where we have receiving, we have shipping, we have loading, we have unloading, and there are multiple other inventory related activities are happening. So there are multiple logistics functions can happen within one given supply chain. But when we look at the supply chain, it is a whole mechanism that is comprised of multiple operations and logistics activities. It is embedded within itself. Do you understand my point here? So what I'm saying,
Mr. Dr.
Yes.
Asif, I got
Yes.
your point. I think the first questions still remain to be answered. That is, when you call it a supply chain or SCM as a whole, I think it depends widely with the organization itself. Okay, so some organization define SCM in such a way it is totally different for other organization.
Exactly.
So,
Let's say, for example, if you take a supply chain for a hospital, for example, healthcare supply chain, or you may take an example of a hospitality or tourism supply chain, where we don't manufacture or where we may not deal with the direct raw materials or materials, where that is purely a service supply chain. But when we deal with the manufacturing, where there is a tangible products that we are moving, and there are different levels of the raw materials, like work in process, finished goods to raw materials. So that is a different type of supply chain where we are dealing with the tangible products. So in terms of supply chain, there are two types of supply chain, which is service and manufacturing supply chain. So here we are just focusing on supply chain with regards to the manufacturing process and specific to in general discussion. We are not going into specific to any service part of the supply chain at the moment. Could I just give a quick go onto that? If you have any question, you can clarify later on as well. Okay. So when we look at this, Amazon's logistic cost, what do you see? What is going on here? This is a very recent data from Amazon's fulfillment and shipping cost, where you can see there is a trend going on over the last almost 12 years. There is something happening here. What is the shift that you see from 2009 to 2021 that Amazon is experiencing?
We can't see any slides on that. I think your slides are not changing.
Well, what do you see now? What do you see in front of you?
The first slide that you introduce, when you start introducing with us. No, now the slide changes.
Yes,
Okay,
yes,
fine.
yes. Now is okay. Now is okay.
Okay.
Now is the Amazon extracting logistic cost.
By the way, did you see this one? By the way.
Yeah, following supply chain. Yeah.
Did you see this before? This slide?
No.
Oh,
Only
no.
just in-
Okay.
No.
Oh my God. So you may have missed something. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So I'll go in this mode. Okay. I will not enlarge the slides. I'll keep this way. Okay. Okay. So I'll just step back a little bit to recap what we have been have spoken already. So I'll just recap quickly and then we will move forward. So here I mentioned about in this slide I mentioned about my background and where I have been working across Canada and as well as different parts of the country, and as well as these are the places there where I've been involved in the consultancy assignments. You can see there are some service supply chains, there are service companies, also there are manufacturing, there are private, and there are also public sector organizations. Now, we also touched the base of this slide where we have been discussing about the multi-layered supply chain, where we have got different functions in the supply chain and how we are connecting through 3 different flows that we just mentioned in a brief in a few minutes back. And then we have come to this slide. Okay. Okay, so now what do you see here? What is going on? Just have a quick glance of the Amazon's logistic cost. What is the trend that you can notice from here?
Upward trend.
So there is an increasing cost which is specific to fulfillment cost and shipping cost, right?
Yeah.
Now, what kind of cost is it when we take into the fulfillment cost?
It's a variable cost.
Okay, variable cost, which is considered as the cost of goods sold, right? Which is considered as the cost of goods sold. So you can see this. There are a couple of things that goes into the fulfillment cost. The things that go into the fulfillment cost, for example, it could be also operating cost, stuffing cost. Then there is also customer service center cost. There is also physical store cost, and as well as payment processing cost. So when we talk about the fulfillment cost, it is a combination of multiple costs hidden inside it. So when we see that fulfillment cost is increasing, that means it is indicating that our variable cost is increasing, right? So when the variable cost is increasing, it is increasing as a matter of what is the indication? What is the linkage when the
that indicates the volume of shipments of Amazon is also increasing.
Exactly. So does it make sense when the shipping cost and fulfillment cost they goes in parallel?
That's a logical consequence.
Exactly.
Because once the shipment movement increase, the fulfillment space need to be expanded as well.
Exactly. Brilliant. So there is a trend in terms of the increasing cost. So now when we talk about this particular shipping cost and fulfillment cost, now here, this part of the cost, it is basically entirely service cost, right? When you're receiving the order and processing the order to fulfill the order, and this is basically the service that you are providing to the customer. Are you with me? Could I make yourself understand? All right. So here we can see that there is an increasing trend in terms of shipping and fulfillment cost, and this trend started with a 15.6% to it goes all the way to 32.3%, which is basically doubled over the next over the last almost 10 to 12 years time, right? So this is kind of a shift. This is a kind of a trend that is indicating that means their shipping and fulfillment cost is increasing. That means there is also sales also increasing. Now, what is the scenario here? What do you see here? Next slide.
Biggest business risks.
Yes. Now, when the business is at risk, what do you think? The supply chain will be also at risk?
Definitely. If the business is risk, that means that the supply chain is the risk.
Exactly. You can recollect when there was COVID-19, in the beginning of 2020 and until end of 20, I think this is very much visible that how the supply chains are vulnerable, right? When there was a disruption in the supply chain, when there was a supply chain discontinuity, there were a lot of inventories. Like, for example, we take the example of the ready-made garments sector in Bangladesh. What happened? There were huge orders were canceled, right? Because
there are huge order cancel, huge order stock lots.
Exactly. So what happened? That means there was something that up in the supply chain, in the retail level or at the customer levels, there was something changed that the whole supply chain got stranded, and the supply chain was not moving due to the disruption, right? So this was the consequence, which is naturally any kind of business risk will affect the supply chain. Another example, I'm sure you have heard about the semiconductor supply chain, which has really affected the automotive industry badly. Now the price of the used car has gone up, while the price of the new car is not that much, because of the fact is the semiconductor, the chips manufacturer from Taiwan and from some other major chip suppliers, they could not run the factories during the COVID. So they have a backlog. They could not really fulfill the customer orders for few couple of months, and they are running behind the order, behind the schedule. That's why you'll see that those cars that are 2022 model, like Toyota, Honda, many other companies, you'll see that these new cars, new models that came out 2022, they don't have many of the features that their previous models had. And this has happened due to the shortage of the chips, the semiconductor, because there is a sensor, there is a need for some of the functions to activate with the sensor, and those could not be installed due to the chip shortage. Okay, so this is another example where the supply chain could be vulnerable, could be facing disruption or at risk when there is any major event happen. Similarly, when there was a flood in 2011 in Thailand, there was a flood in Thailand, and there was most of these Japanese automakers are located in Bangkok, in Thailand, and they have a huge auto supply base. Like, for example, the Denso, many other auto parts manufacturers are located there. So when there was a flood, the factories were shut down, and there was a huge supply disruption. And many of the car orders were received, and they were scheduled to be delivered at a certain date, but they were postponed for a couple of months. They could not fulfill the orders. So this is a example how the supply chain can be vulnerable. So here, what do you see? There are a couple of brands in front of you, right? You have got Target, Zara, Sears, Walmart, and many of these suppliers are located in Bangladesh.
Yes.
Many of these suppliers are in Bangladesh, right? So when there was a COVID, when there was a supply chain disruption, who was the hardest hit in the supply chain? It was the suppliers who are manufacturing the goods. And when the retailers, they say that we cannot take it now, we will not take it now, the retailer is just they will cancel or they will postpone, but the entire burden of the supply chain is back to the supplier or the manufacturer. So they have to find a way around it, that how to deal with this huge inventory, and then they have to find a way to make sure that they are also again sold out. They cannot keep the inventory for too long. So this is another case where we look at the ready-made garment supply chain. Now, here is an example of a couple of companies that you see that they are considered as most innovative companies in the world. So why they are most innovative? What makes them so innovative? So one of the very important aspect of their innovation, and these companies you can see by the color. The blue color represents the technology companies. The red color represents the consumer goods and service companies. Then we have got green. Green represent the transportation and energy, and the yellow represents the healthcare. Okay, so if you look at the top 10 companies, these are all very much into the high-tech industry, like Apple to Facebook. And all of these companies are considered as most innovative companies, and you can see their change. They have changed their position from 2019 to 2020. Over the 1 year, some companies gone up in the list, some companies has gone down in the list. And it is just because of the fact that how they have been changing their new product development, how they were introducing new products to the market. And when you are talking about innovation, when you're talking about new product introduction, your supply chain has got a big role to play here. For example, Apple or Samsung, all these companies, when they bring up the new iPhone or new iPad or new devices, they have to work very closely up in the supply chain with their suppliers, that what could be the new model of these phones that could be produced that did not exist in the previous year, or they exist before, but what could be the new addition to those existing products. So that's how they are trying to create either a product for the new product for the same market, or a new market for the same product. So there are two things. One is the new market for the same product. The other one is the new product for the same market. So either way, you have to find a market innovation, or it has to be a product innovation. So here is the.
Sorry to interrupt. And there could be one of other value addition, the introduction of new uses of the same product. That also creating impact on sales. Suppose for a mobile device, we used to talk. Now we use this as a camera also, because now nobody buy camera. They use the cell phone camera as a camera. So this is how they are creating value.
Exactly. So basically, what you are saying, that is the product integration. Like for example, if you go back 20 years from now, end of 1999, 98, during those times we had something called BlackBerry or Nokia. Until 2005, Nokia was the highest handset selling company in the world until 2005. So what happened to these two companies, BlackBerry and Nokia?
স্যার আমি একটু ইন্টারাপ্ট করি স্যার, ইফ ইউ ডোন্ট মাইন্ড।
প্লিজ
স্যার বাকিদের এগুলো যদি একটু মিউট করা থাকে তাহলে বেটার হতো, কারণ আমি হেডফোনে শুনতেছি তো অনেক আদার নয়েজ আসতেছে। সো দ্যাট ইজ আমার আসলে হেডেকের কারণ হয়ে যাচ্ছে। সো আমি আসলে ইন্টারাপ্ট করতে বাধ্য হলাম।
সরি থ্যাংক ইউ ফর দ্য রিমাইন্ডার। আচ্ছা, আমি একটু রিকোয়েস্ট করবো সবাইকে, আপনাদের যারা কথা বলবেন তারা খালি মাইক্রোফোনটা অন করবেন, আর যারা কথা বলছেন না তারা একটু মিউট করে রাখেন, কারণ এখানে শব্দ আসছে অনেক।
স্যার আপনি তো হোস্ট, অনেকে দেখা যাচ্ছে যে মিউট করতেছে না, আপনি কাইন্ডলি ওনাদেরটা জাস্ট মিউট করে দেন।
আচ্ছা এখন আসে
অ্যান্ড্রয়েড ব্লু ড্রয়েড নামে একজন ইউজার আছেন, ওনার মাইক্রোফোন থেকে প্রচুর নয়েজ আসতেছে।
জি, ওনার মাইক্রোফোন থেকে নয়েজটা আসছে মেইনলি। আসলে
একটু কাইন্ডলি মিউট করে দিবেন ফোনটা।
হ্যাঁ, উনি যে মাত্র করলেন,
এখন ঠিক আছে। Thank you very much. Sorry for the interruption. I hope everybody is listening to me loud and clear. So এখানে যেটা আমি বলতে চাচ্ছিলাম যে মানে when we talk about the innovation cannot be done by a company alone, because in the past, like when we talk about the Nokia and BlackBerry during those days, the time has shifted our mindset or our process, how we look at it. For example, আমরা যখন দেখি যে আগে ধরেন 20-30 years back, 20-30 বছর আগে আমরা মনে করতাম যে একটা কোম্পানি আরেকটা কোম্পানির সাথে কম্পিটিশন করে, কিন্তু আসলে মডার্ন বিজনেসে we don't compete against company to company, rather we compete against supply chain to supply chain. কারণ একটা সাপ্লাই চেইনের যখন আমরা মানে আপস্ট্রিম টু ডাউনস্ট্রিম উপর থেকে সাপ্লায়ার থেকে শুরু করে কাস্টমার পর্যন্ত আমরা দেখি, তাহলে দেখবেন যে একটা সাপ্লাই চেইনের মধ্যে অনেকগুলা আপস্ট্রিম মানে সাপ্লায়ার আছে যারা টিয়ার 1, টিয়ার 2, টিয়ার 3, আবার অনেকগুলো কাস্টমার আছে টিয়ার 1 টু টিয়ার 2, টিয়ার 3। তো এখানে দেখবেন যে এই সাপ্লায়ার এবং কাস্টমার যারা they are doing business with one of the focal companies, like for example they are a supplier to, for example, Toyota, for example. Same company, they are also supplier to Honda or some other other automotive companies. For example, let's take the example for the tire manufacturing, like Firestone, Bridgestone, Goodyear. These are the tire manufacturers. The tire is their final product, but when they are selling it to an automotive manufacturer, automotive company, they are selling as a component to a final product. So ekhane some tier upper tier suppliers, they might be also doing businesses with the competitors of the focal companies. Focal companies amra bolchi ekhane je main company je mane who is connecting the entire supply chain as a central piece in the whole supply chain. তো এখানে এই যে আমরা যে দেখছি যে Nokia এবং BlackBerry, they were dominating the industry. They were one of the leading players in the industry, but they have disappeared over the time. What really happened was it was just a lack of understanding of what the market is changing towards, and failure to keep pace with the innovation in the industry. তো এখানে যেসব কোম্পানিগুলা মার্কেটের ট্রেন্ড কোন দিকে যাচ্ছে, মার্কেট কোন দিকে শিফট হচ্ছে, যেমন আমরা 2005 পর্যন্ত আমরা টাচ স্ক্রিন কিংবা অ্যাপল কিংবা স্যামসাং এগুলো আমরা খুব একটা we didn't know much about it. But what happened is in a very quick turnaround, the industry has shifted dramatically from keypad based mobile phone to touch screen based mobile phones. So ekhane there are a lot of companies who wanted to also follow the trend. For example, BlackBerry they also wanted to introduce a touch screen, but the technology that they wanted to imitate or copy from Apple, it didn't work for them. And that's where the same technology could work for some company to lead the market. Again, the same technology could also be the driver to push the other company to get out of the market. So there is a challenge that how do you really manage the supply chain that will create the holistic value for the end users. So ekhane end user ke kar jonno amra value creation korchi, it is the final customer who is paying for the final product.
Consumer or customer or buyer.
Yeah. Okay, thank you.
Dr. Asif, I would like to make a question actually.
Yes, please go ahead.
If you go back to your earlier slide, just my comment is that this logo things or this ranking things is obsolete in recent days. It doesn't matter anymore. If you see in your list, not a single Chinese company is there except Huawei. But you know, the second richest company, the economy on earth. The problem is that how you'll rank it, by turnover or by the market share, how?
Okay.
That is one dilemma in the world. That's what I'm saying, because I do with the Chinese, and there are big companies who can actually maybe earning 10 times more than these any companies here, but they are not listed here.
There is a Chinese company. You see Alibaba.
And why?
Alibaba is number 7.
CNBM. This is a 500 Fortune company, one of them. My point is that
Tencent is also there.
It's why I'm saying this turnover based ranking is in a bigger sense is maybe not right. We have seen that big company next day, say Enron, Lehman Brothers, next day bankrupt. So this is one comment from my side. That's it.
Thank you. Yeah, you're absolutely correct. But what happens here? The ranking is not. It is based on the innovation. So when we look at the innovation, there are two types of innovation. One is called radical innovation. The other one is called the incremental innovation. So when we talk about the radical innovation, which is a new product that is introduced to the market that probably in that shape and form did not exist before. But when we talk about the incremental innovation, it is basically an extension of an existing product to a different level of specifications and also features. So when we look at the Chinese companies, what happens is, in terms of the manufacturing world, these Chinese companies are good innovators, but they do the innovation based on what has been around. Like, for example, I give you the example, which I have been there many times with there's a company called GM Shanghai. Have you heard of this name? GM, General Motors Shanghai.
No, I haven't. No.
Yes, this is a company. This is the first. This is the first American company who went to do business in China when China did not open the market yet. It was in 1992. Okay, so I have been there many times in the GM Shanghai plant, but this GM Shanghai was the first American company, or you can say first foreign company that entered into the Chinese market. So what happened was, that time these Chinese companies that you see around, like Geely, Shang'an, QQ, all these Chinese companies, they didn't even exist at that time. So what they were doing when Shanghai GM, which is General Motors, which it was an American company, when they used to roll out any new model, the Chinese companies, they used to be the first customer to buy those cars. And then they do the reverse engineering, and they would produce exactly the same prototype with a different name and different, different shape and color. So what happened is, the innovation is there, but what kind of innovation, that matters. And here, these innovative companies that we are talking about, they are mostly focused on the radical innovation, not the incremental innovation. Okay. So here is another snapshot of the COVID-19 scenario, where we are looking at the shape of the recovery. Now, when we look at the shape of the recovery, it has got to do with the supply chain as well, because when the supply chains they work based on how the economy is working. Like, for example, if we look at the global economy, it is based on basically the supply and demand. And when there's a lack of demand, the supply will automatically shrink. So what happened if you look at the oil market, based on the price of the oil market, when there was no air transportation, there was no movement due to the lockdown and all these, there was a sharp drop in the oil price. So that is one indication that means when there is a supply disruption, and when there is one of the part of the economy is affected somehow or the other, then the other parts are connected as well. Like, basically, if we look at this oil is one of the raw supplier for many of the other companies that use their oil. For example, the largest oil buyer in the world is China and India. China and India are the largest oil buyer. Like from Saudi Arabia or from the Middle East, the largest importers are these two countries. Even the China is now buying the oil fields in Africa, like in Nigeria and all these places. They are buying the whole oil field, and this is because they want to keep make sure that they want to keep a control over the supply, so that the supply of the raw materials does not fluctuate. And if there's a fluctuation, that is going to also affect the price, and that will create a sort of a panic reaction or nervous reaction onto the downstream supply chain. So this is where we are looking at the effect of the economy. So what happens? Let me ask you one question. When there is a panic in the supply chain or shock in the supply chain, what would the downstream players in the supply chain, they will react with? How they will react? What do you think?
They go for a panic buy or panic purchase, whatever you say.
Exactly. So what would be that panic mode? Like if they are here, like for example, they are optimistic or pessimistic. If they are pessimistic, what they will do is they will try to hoard. They will do the hoarding. Hoarding means they will try to stock. They will stockpile the raw materials or the supplies, because they are afraid when there is a supply is stopped, or there will be increase in the price. So they may not be able to keep pace with the with their manufacturing and with their supply. So what they will do is they will go for reserve, or they'll hold. They'll try to stockpile their inventories for the long term. Okay, this is one. And what happens is when you start hoarding, what is the reaction to the market? What will happen to the other parties in the supply chain? How they will react as well? If everybody starts to panic and everybody starts to hoard, what will be the reaction, market reaction?
Demand will be high, but the supply will be less. So there will be a price impact and it will increase. Exactly.
That's what has happened. And if you look at the US grocery chains, grocery market, that's what happened. When there was a panic buying, there was a shortage of supply. Even there was a huge shortage of the mask, there was sanitizers and all these. Even there were a huge shortage of these necessary essential goods or commodities that they needed, but they could not get the supplies, and they could not even get them, even they paid higher than the market price. So there will be a reaction, and that reaction will always create unnecessary shock, and that will impact the price somehow or the other on the upstream or the downstream in the supply chain. So these are some of the range of the products, like specialty products, where we have the aircraft manufacturing to the commodities, like for example the oil, gas, petrochemicals, chemicals, and so on. And in between, we have got the random access memory chips, semiconductor, automotive parts, aeroplane parts, and hard disk drive, and so on and so forth. So these are basically different levels of the categories of the products, from specialized to commodity products. And here, the bubbles that you see, they indicate the impact. The bigger the bubble, the higher the impact. The smaller the bubble, the smaller the impact. And the red ones you can see here, they're indicating the players or the suppliers directly affected by the disaster. And when they are affected by the disaster, and that effect will send a negative shock on the customer side. So there is a connection between the supplier and the customer. That means in between, entire supply chain will have a reaction based on what upstream supply chain experience. On the other hand, that same panic or that shock will also be transferred to the downstream supply chain, to the customer side. So that's how we can see that the disruption in the supply chain can how it transmitted very quickly. Now, here is an example of a Red Lobster supply chain. Have you heard of this name before, Red Lobster?
Yes, we do.
Okay, so this is a restaurant. Okay, this is a seafood restaurant. This is basically a service supply chain. They sell the seafood. Seafood includes many types of different types of fish, crabs, shrimps, and other different types of seafood. So this is considered as the largest seafood restaurant in the world, and they are mostly located in North America. And this company, Red Lobster, they serve almost approximately 140 million meals from over 700 restaurants. So what happens is, most interesting for this Red Lobster supply chain is they are sourcing their seafood products from 5 continents. Now, how 5 continents? Because they sell some of the exotic meals, the seafood meals, that though they are based in North America, but many of these meals or seafood, they don't grow. They don't really grow within North America. Some of them are from South America. Some of them are from Asia. Some of them are from Australia. Some of them are from other different parts of the world. So basically, they need to source these raw fishes from 5 different continents. and that makes them to have a supply base. Their number of suppliers could be close to thousands. So what happens is, when you are sourcing these seafood from so many suppliers from so many different countries, what happens is some of the fish, some of the seafood, they need a freezing temperature, like below 0 degree minus temperature. Some of them need to be maintained from 0 to 5 degree. Some of them need to be maintained from 5 to 20 degree. Some of them need warm water, which could be 25 to 30 degree. So there is also a range of temperatures, and again there is also a range of the water. Like some of them need to be in the saline water, salt water. Some of them needs to be in the fresh water. So you can see that the extent of the supply chain diversity. That means when you are sourcing from different continents and distant part of the world, that means you have got suppliers who has to make sure that when this fish is shipped from Asia or from South America or wherever it is, until it reached to the destination, it is maintained throughout the transportation process. They are maintained into the same temperature. Like, for example, the COVID-19 vaccine, like the Pfizer vaccine, it needs to be temperature controlled below minus 70 degree. Okay. Again, AstraZeneca, it can be maintained up to 15-20 degrees. Moderna, again, it has got its own temperature. So different vaccines, they have to be maintained at different temperature level, and it has to be maintained throughout the entire supply chain from origin to the destination. So now imagine the challenge that is there, where we have to make sure that this temperature doesn't fluctuate. If it fluctuates, then the effectiveness of the quality of the product will be somehow compromised. Okay, so here is a kind of we put together all those things that we have been talking about, from suppliers all the way to the customer. And when we are looking at the facilities that are involved in the supply chain, they are again connected through the transportation services, or those transportation modes can be water transport or land transport. They can be air transport, or they can be the pipeline transport, or they can be the train or rail transportations. So these are the different kinds of transportation modes are placed into on the ground, so that they are connecting different entities in the supply chain, so that the right product reaches to the right customer at the right time, with the right quality, with the right quantity, with the right price, at the right place. So here are 7 rights that we are talking about that are working alongside with this entire flow that you see in front of you. So the flows that I just mentioned before, the material flow, which we call it the inventory flow, then we have the information flow, and the third flow that we talked about, the payment flow, which is moving back. When the customer receives the product, they pay to the distributor pay to the manufacturer pays to the supplier. So the payment moves back, and the products or the materials move forward, and the information is moving back and forth. So why information needs to move back and forth? What do you think? What could be your take on this? Information back and forth.
Sir, for reverse supply chain management?
Reverse supply chain is there, but there is another important reason why that.
There's one thing is a big data analysis, like, you know, if to forecast the trend and to assess the trend, there we use this kind of data to move on forward to this thing in the longer case. Like you said a few moments back, that sometimes the panic things happen. For example, like every year regarding the February festival in China, freight goes up. So what we do as a supply chain managers, we plan the stuffs earlier than this high freight trend, or afterwards the high freight trend. Like in March and April, we schedule our shipment, or we schedule our shipment in January or something like that. So to understand this overall scenario, so we would like to have those data, that how informations move on forward, so that everybody can have this thing information. So that's my own understanding.
Thank you.
Okay, I would like to add one more point here. Actually, if we are able to build a solution, we need to get the information and need to understand the customer need area first. And also based on that, the supplier need to manufacture the goods. And also when customer use the product, supplier also know how customer is satisfied or not, how is there any quality defect or anything. That's probably the main reason the information flow was back and forth always, to make the product efficient, to make the supply chain efficient as well. That's from my point of view.
Exactly. This is very, very.
One important thing is
yes, Mr. Marizaman. Yes, please go ahead.
Actually, in a nutshell, for taking decision and fulfillment the customer want and non-satisfaction, and improving the product quality and timely delivery the goods and services. And
exactly.
this is very important part for taking decision by using the
brilliant
kinds of information.
Brilliant, wonderful. Exactly.
Dr. Asif, can I interrupt for a minute?
Yes, please go ahead.
Okay. So far, I understand from your lecture, so far, I can see that the supply chain, the way you are defining and my understanding is a little bit different. You are mostly focusing on the material to flow from the manufacturer end to retailer end, or maybe the consumer end. But all these things, the materials, the information, and all the cash is flowing because of what? Because of a purchase order or a sale order is issued. So someone has triggered it. So procurement, as I work in a procurement, is doing actually the key part of these things. He is actually putting the fire on the haystack, and rest of the thing is doing. Why I'm saying this? We handle bulk material in my organization. That is a very, when it comes to the per ton or per kg, all these things comes very minimum, maybe 2% of the total cost. But as you're focusing too much on this 2% and 98% is hidden, that's my point, is that SCM may be not totally focused here.
All right, thank you. So
I add something, sir. এখানে আমি একটা কথা বলতে চাই।
Yes.
আসলে সাপ্লাই চেইনের যে ট্রেন্ডটা সৃষ্টি হয়েছে 2060 সালে, 1960 এখানে সাপ্লাই চেইনের যে কনসেপ্টটা ছিল সেটা ছিল এক একটা গ্রুপ, এক একটা ডিপার্টমেন্ট তার ইন্ডিভিজুয়ালি কাজ করে যেত। 1980 সালে এসে এটা একটা হয়েছে, সেখানে প্রকিউরমেন্ট আসছে, পারচেজ আসছে, এসে অ্যাড হয়ে আসলে 2000 সালে এসে সাপ্লাই চেইন ম্যানেজমেন্ট নামে এই যে আত্মপ্রকাশ ঘটেছে, এবং সেটা 2010 সালে এসে অটোমেশন হয়েছে। অতএব ভাই যেটা বলেছেন যে প্রকিউরমেন্ট এবং পারচেজ, দিস ইজ পার্ট অফ সাপ্লাই চেইন, এন্ড ইট ইজ অ্যাকচুয়ালি সাপ্লাই চেইনের সাথেই এটা রিলেটেড, এবং সাপ্লাই চেইন এটা নিয়েই কাজ করবে। লজিস্টিকও সাপ্লাই চেইন নিয়ে কাজ করবে। সাপ্লাই চেইন ইজ এ বিগ থিং, আর প্রকিউরমেন্ট ইজ দ্য পার্ট অফ দ্য সাপ্লাই চেইন। বাট প্রকিউরমেন্ট কোনো কম গুরুত্বপূর্ণ কোনো বিষয় নয়। প্রকিউরমেন্ট আমরা তখন কাজ করেছি, সেটা হচ্ছে যে একটা ডিপার্টমেন্ট থেকে তার চাহিদাপত্র যখন এসেছে, সেটা স্টোরে এসে দেখেছে আমার কতটুকু স্টক আছে, আমার 3 মাসের এভারেজ কনজাম্পশন কত, আমি কতটুকু প্রকিউর করব। এই যে একটা ম্যানুয়াল প্রসেসে এসেছে, সেটার একটা পরিমার্জিত রূপ হচ্ছে সাপ্লাই চেইন। Am I clear, sir?
Exactly. You're really correct. Like as you mentioned, what's your name? Sorry.
MD Moniruzzaman.
Yes. Mr. Moniruzzaman, thank you very much for highlighting this very important point. Like as you can see that there is a change has happened over the time since 1950, 1960s. Like the Toyota manufacturing system, they have been using the supply chain concept, but they didn't call it a supply chain. And supply chain was not a terminology that it was known to the people until 1990. So when it came to the name supply chain, it was tossed by Anderson Consulting Company. Anderson was the management consulting company who gave this name in 1990 for the first time. But before that, as Mr. Manir has mentioned very clearly, all these functions like procurement, material management, physical distribution management, logistics management, transportation, these were all working as standalone entities and working with their local optimization, with their local objectives. But when the supply chain came, then we started to think, like here, as you can see, that when we look at the input, process, and output, this is a system model. And this has been developed back in 1957 by Professor J. Forrester from MIT, Massachusetts Institute of Technology, from the Sloan School of Management. So he used that concept back in 1957, but he called it a system model. He did not call it a supply chain at that time. But what he has pictured here, that the input is including all those procurement, material management, all these things are in there. And then the process from the supplier all the way to the customer, and then end result of the process is your output, which we call as you can call it a value, or you can call it a end product, or you can call it whatever it is that you are delivering to your final customer. So this is basically terminology when we talk about the supply chain. So if we just focus on one aspect of the supply chain, that means we are not talking about the whole supply chain. We are just talking about one part of the supply chain. But supply chain is a big thing, as you can see in front of you. It's this particular diagram. It shows that we have got multiple tiers of suppliers, multiple tiers of customers. But in the middle, we have the focal company. We have the focal company, and the focal company is the network point of the network for the entire supply chain. Like, for example, this focal company could be a major or automotive manufacturer. It could be any other manufacturer who are integrating the processes from upstream to the downstream. Mr. Manir, could I convey my message clearly? Is that clear enough?
Yes, sir. Yes.
Yes. Anybody else? Any other questions?
Sir,
yes.
This is Asif. I have a question that, so
yes,
as per your words, so can we say that supply chain is different for different organization in terms of their service and all the working procedures as they manage? Like, as I'm from a logistics background, I'm working in Maersk. So basically, for us, cargo is coming at CFS. We are maintaining all the documentation processes, and we are just exporting it to the exporting country. So in this case, I think the supply chain overall process has become very integrated. So in that way, can we say that supply chain is different from company to company?
If you're a part of the supply chain, and within the same supply chain, you can have multiple companies. Like, for example, you're doing the logistics management of one company, and you are a part of that bigger supply chain, which you don't see probably, but your company is also working with some other company who are also doing business subsequently with somebody else on the other side. Okay, so it can vary from company to company, but your company, it has to be a part of the supply chain where they are working with other companies as well. So here, the connection between your company to the other company, you may not see, but your company is working either in the upstream or in the downstream with other companies in the same supply chain.
Okay, sir, but as you said earlier, that logistics is basically a service for the supply chains, right? So how you will define that?
Okay. Let's say I put a circle here. How can I draw it? Let's say, for example, when we look at a supply chain, it is basically an encompassing. It is an encompassing process that integrates multiple logistics functions within itself. Let's say, for example, you have a warehouse. You are a manufacturer and you have a warehouse. And within the warehouse, you have got your logistical activities or logistical functions within the warehouse. It can be a forklift operation, it could be loading, unloading, it could be inventory management, and so on and so forth. Similarly, the same activities are also happening with the supplier warehouse. Also, similar activities are also happening with the customer warehouse. So everybody is having their own inventories, they're having their own processes, and they're managing their processes within their own facilities through their logistical functions. But each of these suppliers, customers, and manufacturers, they are connected through their information system with their other parties that are also part of their supply chain. So when we talk about the supply chain, within one supply chain, there can be multiple logistical functions embedded within it. Do you understand this part? Like, for example, we may have VMI, we may have vendor managed inventory. We have WMS, warehouse management system. We have got the DC operations, distribution center operations. So these are the different functions that are independently, each of them are logistical functions, but they are working towards the goal that how the supply chain can operate seamlessly, uninterruptedly, and create value for its end customer.
Clear, sir. Thanks for your nice explanation. Thank you.
Thank you. So here is a terminology that you will hear oftentimes in the supply chain, which is called the bullwhip effect. Anybody has any idea about it? Bullwhip.
Yes, we do.
Yes, just share your understanding. What is it? What is it?
Actually, control the wastage. Control in a nutshell.
Okay, so you can look at this graph, that the blue one represents the supplier's inventory. This is their what they believe that they can sell. Then the wholesalers is the green one, the retailers is the red one, and the orange one is the consumer. Okay, now the consumers one, this is the real demand. Okay, the orange one is the real demand, and supplier, wholesaler, and retailers, they are trying to fulfill the customer demand, and what they're doing is they are carrying way more than what the customer will buy. Okay, do you understand up to this point?
Yeah, we do.
Okay, so here you can see that there is a real demand, which is the orange one, the customer's demand. Then we have got the retailers. Then we have green one is the wholesaler and supplier. Now you can see that the real demand is only the orange one, which is the customer is going to buy. But why the entire supply chain is carrying this much of inventory, like a mountain?
Yes, sir. Time wastage and any other wastage can control kora hoy.
I think that the demand forecast was wrong, and also they plan for higher inventory considering the disruption in the market, and also they plan more inventory for the peak seasons.
Okay, wonderful. So what happens here, what we see here is the real demand is what the customer is going to buy or what the customer is going to pay for, right? This is what the whole supply chain should carry, which is the customer demand, the black one, and here we can see that there is a quite close approximity to the real demand. But what happens here is, if you look at here, that everybody in the supply chain, they have their if they do not play the role as a part of the supply chain, and they try to focus on their own objective and own profitability, then what happens is the overall supply chain will be suffering, and they all will be paying that extra cost. So here the real demand is the black one, the line that you see. But retailer think that if I have excess demand, if I have let's say 10% more than what the customer will buy, then I can fulfill the order if there is a change in demand. If the customer order more, I can fulfill the order. So they will plan according to that 10% extra. Again, similarly, if you look at the green one, this is the green one is the wholesaler. This wholesaler is also using the information or the order processed by the retailer, and the wholesaler also adding another additional 10% on top of what the retailer has ordered. Similarly, the manufacturer also thinks similarly that if there is a fluctuation, there is a excess demand, then I want to fulfill that demand as well. And they also add another 10% of what the wholesaler has planned or ordered. Manufacturer is planning additional extra. So overall, if you take into account of all these excess amount in the supply chain, this is what is the inventory carrying cost for the entire supply chain, where the customer will only pay for this much, but the supply chain is carrying this much. Do you see where the cost is happening? So this is one of the reasons why the supply chain has come into existence, where it has created the planning and also sharing information so that everybody knows the actual demand or actual information on a real-time basis. So with that, you can now again we summarize this. When there is a demand fluctuation, I think there is a sound going on. Can you please mute the microphone? Okay, thank you. So you can see here that the real demand is this one. The customers, like the parties who are involved in the supply chain, like for example, when we say customer, they are also part of the supply chain. They are also playing some role in terms of what the customer is looking for, in terms of fulfilling the customer demand. We have the retailer plan here, wholesaler and manufacturer and supplier. So you can see that there is a order variability. Order variability means everyone is planning their own, and they are not really using the actual supply chain demand information for forecasting their demand. So that's where everyone is having extra inventory. Everyone is carrying the excess inventory and paying for the cost of carrying it, but nobody is gaining benefited. Nobody is benefited from this. And that's what is the phenomena we call in supply chain term as the bullwhip effect. Bullwhip is like if you have a rope, একটা রশি যদি আমরা ওটাকে ইয়ে করি মানে fluctuate করি, তাহলে there will be amplification, like a frequency amplification. So that wave, that wave of the amplification, it has a kind of a synonymous example how the demand fluctuates across the supply chain from suppliers all the way to the customer. So it is happening due to the fact that everybody have their own plan, but they are not really sharing their information, the actual information. So the actual information is something, but they are ordering something else. And everybody is doing the same, and that's what is the effect that the supply chain has been facing, and that's what we call bullwhip effect. Now, what we need to do, we need to do more effective information sharing or information exchange, and more collaboration. Now, what is collaboration? Collaboration is basically sharing that information on a real-time basis. And that's why we have something called CPFR. CPFR is Collaborative Planning, Forecasting, and Replenishment. So CPFR, it is basically a new kind of a process that has been introduced in the supply chain, where you have got suppliers are coming from different parts of the world, and customers are in another part of the world. Now, they will put their representatives from each of the parties in the supply chain to work together so that they sit down and they plan together that how much for the next quarter, how much for the next year, or how much to be planned for next subsequent years, so that everybody is in the same scenario, and everybody is having the same information at the same time. So let's say, for example, when we looked at when we looked at the information, like the flow of the information, why I say that it has to go back and forth. It has to go back and forth due to the fact is, let's say, for example, ধরেন আপনারা কোকা-কোলা অথবা পেপসি একটা দোকানে গিয়ে কোকা-কোলা অথবা পেপসি কিনলেন, যখন ওই পেপসিটা আউট হয়ে গেল, then the Coca-Cola or Pepsi, they have to know that there is a bottle of Pepsi is out, and there is a need for replenishment or replacement of that bottle back to the store. So the entire supply chain now has to work around that when and how that Coca-Cola has to go back to the shelf where the next customer can again buy. And that's where the role of the information comes in supply chain, where it is related to the replenishment and replacement of the inventory back to the store. So to streamline this process, we have been seeing that companies like Walmart, Procter & Gamble, all other big box retailers, they are using the RFID. RFID is basically radio frequency identification tag. And this has been there for a long time, since 2005. And it has been an initiative by Walmart, and they kind of forced everyone who wants to do business, whoever wants to do business with Walmart, they must have the RFID. So what is the purpose of the RFID? It helps you to track and trace your inventory in the supply chain, so that you know exactly where is your inventory sitting, how much is inventory left, and when it has to be replenished. That is the purpose of the RFID. So it is understandable now that what is the benefit if we can reduce the bullwhip effect. If we can reduce the bullwhip effect, there is a cost saving, and that cost saving.
Kindly come again, because your slides are changing.
Okay, so what I was trying to explain again, that what is the benefit of the bullwhip effect? If we can eliminate.
We are on the different slide. Please project that slide. Yeah, thank you.
This one? Okay, so when we are looking at the bullwhip effect, basically we are talking about what is the benefit of the bullwhip effect if we can eliminate this. So if we can eliminate the bullwhip effect, the benefit, the straight benefit is there will be the cost saving. And that cost saving is shared within the supply chain partners, which can be a part of their profit, which will have their direct impact on their overall profitability. So eliminating the bullwhip alone, it can increase the profitability by 10 to 20%. This is based on the research on the supply chain inventories across different kinds of industries, like, for example, mainly in the FMCG. FMCG stands for fast moving consumer goods, like, for example, Walmart, Tesco, Carrefour, there are Zara, Lands' End, Harry Rosen, all these companies. They are the global retailers. They have got their stores all around the world, and they kind of source the inventories from many different countries, from different suppliers. So overall, if we look at their impact on the profitability, like I have been involved with a research team from the Procter & Gamble, and we worked on that research project in Thailand, in Bangkok. And Thailand has got Procter & Gamble's one of the largest manufacturing base, which is, you can see that there is a sound going on. Okay, Procter & Gamble has got many different products, and they have got their manufacturing plants in different parts, like for Asia and the Pacific, like from New Zealand until Tunisia. For this entire part of this Asian region, they have got their manufacturing plant in Thailand, and as well as in Manila in Philippines. So there are almost 15 product lines that they are manufacturing from Thailand. Like, for example, Tide. There are also other consumer goods that they sell into the market, Procter & Gamble. So we looked at their inventory for 1 year. Back, it was this research we worked on from 2002 until 2005 for 3 years data we looked at. And in that research, we found that if we just share information and we can eliminate the excess inventory from the Procter & Gamble supply chain, we can save $52 billion per year. Can you imagine this amount of cost saving, $52 billion?
Huge amount.
Yeah.
Sir, here I also like to add some of my own experience in this
Yes, please go ahead.
In fact, it also applicable in automobile segment, especially in spare part segment. That's we called in our segment, we use bullwhips in as a seasoning factor. Like in some season, we required some parts. For example, in winter segment, we require some of the batteries and other things more. The sale would be there. Whereas in the other segments, like in a winter segment, in a rainy segment, it will be require some control cables and other things. And as well as also some SQ product, maybe we are selling in during the rainy season, like dump trucks, it will not be going to sold out. But whereas on the during the winter season, the dump trucks will be higher. So I don't need to keep the stock in during the rainy season. I can keep the stock in the winter season, and I can get into the goods in my inventory, and that can happen in some cases. Recently, I make it happen that it happens just in time. I clear the goods from the customs, and then it goes out to the directly to the the customer side. So these things also happening nowadays in automobile segment, and it is really saving a lot. And this year, after joining this my new organization, I make it out that last year my holding inventory cost was almost a year long is 13.8 CR, but which we can really manage it catering the seasoning factors within only 7 to 8 CR.
Wow.
So
50%, 50%
almost 50%. And this is the really direct your OPEX and all the PNL is get boosted with it. So you are releasing a huge fund from your inventory cost.
Brilliant, wonderful.
Bhaiya, sorry to step in. So do you ever calculate the cost of customer dissatisfaction on that effort? Because in Bangladesh, especially in the automobile industry, we see major service provider or the producer actually take 1 month to even to 3 months just to replace a single device. So that's actually creating bad customer experience. So we need to, I think, trade off between right inventory and right level of customer service.
Absolutely right. You're absolutely right. In the fast moving parts, in some segment that you have to make it available in across the year. But I am saying that, but some of the components, maybe requirement is high at some season and low in some season. But if some company are doing it, that's fine. But some company are not doing it, then that's a problem for them. But there is always demand and supply. There will be some issues will be there. Maybe, for example, if it is a slow moving item, it is a medium moving item, some companies are not keeping it. Maybe they are keeping it in a different way. Their strategy will be different as per their business model in a spare parts department.
Right.
Understandable.
Exactly. Thank you. I think this is becoming very visible, what the bullwhip effect is across industries. When you do a little bit of depth analysis of your status of the inventory. And there are also classifications of the inventories like slow moving, fast moving, and then you can really plan what kind of inventory to hold for how long, in what quantity, at what location. So all these things really can, in the end, the cumulative effect can be huge if you take into consideration for the whole supply chain.
Dr. Asif, may I make a comment?
Yes, please.
In your Bullwhip effect, you try to show that the biggest inventory is starting from the supplier and it is going down as it progresses up to the retailer, right?
No, this is happening as you see this one, you can see that the worst sufferer is the supplier, right? The worst sufferer is the supplier because of the fact.
Dr. Asif, my point is that you are saying that supplier is holding the biggest inventory rather than the retailer, right?
No, I'm saying because why supplier is having the biggest inventory, because of the fact that the information that supplier receives is through all these people. Like supplier don't see what customer is buying, right? He is very far at the back in the supply chain. But who is closest to the consumer? The retailer. Retailer has the right information, what he's selling and how much customer is buying. Is that clear?
I think you mean the producer, not the supplier here.
Yeah,
No,
please.
listen first. Let me finish this one. So what I'm saying, what I'm trying to explain here is, you can see that why the retailer is in a much better shape, where he's having very minimum inventory compared to the supplier. The fact is, it is because why supplier is carrying so much inventory is because of the information that he was given from these people. So in the supply chain, the supplier is very far, and whatever information supplier will process is based on whatever the retailer, wholesaler, manufacturer will tell the supplier, because supplier has no connection with the customer. What customer is buying or not buying, he doesn't know. So whatever information supplier is receiving from, based on these people who are really in direct contact with the customer. So retailer is the eyes and ears, and he has the best information about the consumer demand, and he is planning his inventory, and that information he is passing on to the wholesaler. So when he's sharing the information about the inventory, he is adding additional, it is called you can call it a reserve capacity. Actual demand, if it is 10, he is planning for 20. So he's adding another 10. So when he's telling the wholesaler, I need 20, then wholesaler also thinks that, okay, probably I need to also cater from for extra inventory, and wholesaler will cater for 40. And when the wholesaler tells 40, then supplier will think that I also need to have some extra so that we can fulfill the demand if there is a contingency where there is a surge or decline in demand. So he will also cater for additional, and he is carrying 80. So here you can see that actual demand is 10, but the supplier is carrying 80. So why he's carrying 80? Because he is getting the information from all other people who has shared the information, and on top of that, he is planning his own inventory.
Dr. Asif, I got your message. It's loud and clear. I have no issue with that. My point is that in some sectors, that is totally reverse. Reverse is like this: the manufacturer, the supplier has the lowest inventory. Retailer is actually holding the biggest inventory. How? Because supplier is 1 point, and he doesn't have any extra space to stock anything. He has only one store. Almost every day, the production is taken by the dealers, the wholesalers. Then wholesaler distributes the retailers. You think how many retailers are there? If you consider as a Coke, maybe 1 lakh retailer is there. So if they keep 5 bottles in one shop, that means 5 lakhs bottles is stock in the retailer's end. My point is that in your Bullwhip, you are trying to show that the biggest inventory in the supplier side. But my industry, I'm telling you, we have a zero stock, and all the stock is maintained in the retailer's end. So Bullwhip actually, I agree with the surplus stock, which actually consumer is paying, but that stock definitely not in the manufacturer side or supplier side. That stays mostly in the retailer side. That is my point.
Okay. So this is yeah, exactly. This can be the possibility in some cases, but also it depends on there are 2 types of demand planning in supply chain. One is called pull, and another one is called push and pull demand. Do you know the differences between these 2, push and pull demand?
Yeah, we know that.
Okay, so
yeah, no.
So what kind of companies or what kind of businesses will work for pull demand, for example? So depending,
I think demand is high, the manufacturing supply is less, than the pulling is there, right?
So if you know what is pull and push, then you will know then who will be having the highest inventory. It may be the supplier, or it may be the customer or retailer. So it depends on which kind of demand planning you are doing, push or pull.
So your Bullwhip can be reverse also, right?
Yes, it can be reverse, and it depends on what kind of demand or push or pull based demand strategy are you using in your supply chain.
Okay.
Okay.
That was I'm trying to share with you. That's it.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Could you please clarify the push and pull demand?
Okay. Let's say, for example, some of the supply chains, they are working based on online business, for example, online, like for example, Amazon, or let's say Dell computer, okay, for example. So what they will do is they will not stock anything before there is an order. Okay, so like Amazon or online companies, they may not hold their inventories in their warehouse until unless there is a real demand. So they will wait for the customer demand to arrive, and then the information that they receive when the customer is using the mouse to place the order, like they click on this product, they click on that product, and then when they go to the checkout box, like they go to the cart, they are going for checkout, and then when they make a payment through the credit card, and the retailer is receiving the payment, then they will pass this information to the upstream supply chain. Now you start to move your inventories down to the customer. Okay, this is one scenario where we are using the pool demand. That means the customer will place the order, and then we'll start to move the goods. And on the other side, on the flip side, we have, let's say, for example, it's a bricks and mortar supply chain, for example, traditional or conventional supply chain, where the retailer will build up inventory. For example, they will build up the inventory at the retail store. It could be a supermarket, it could be a grocery market, it could be a hypermarket, it could be a warehouse floor where the customer will come and buy in wholesale, in bulk, for example. So here now, these traditional supply chains, they are more working towards push-based supply chain demand. Like they will build up the inventory, and then they will play some kind of game, buy one get one free, or they will say 5% discount, 10% discount, and then they will try to sell in bulk volume and clear up that inventory. So it depends on which demand planning or which kind of planning you are using in your supply chain, that will determine where is your inventory is going to be held, so that you can fulfill the demand when the customer is looking for the product.
স্যার এখানে আমি কি একটু অ্যাড করতে পারি, if you don't
Yes,
mind?
please go ahead.
Okay,
definitely.
আমি স্যার এখানে আমি দুইটা এক্সাম্পল দিতে চাই, if I don't misunderstood from my experience and also from your lecture. সেটা হচ্ছে যে ফর এক্সাম্পল আমার কোম্পানিতে বা আমার আগের কোম্পানিতে যেটা হতো, অটোমোবাইল কোম্পানিতে ছিল দুটোটা, তো সেখানে আমরা যেটা করতাম সেটা হচ্ছে
কোন ইন্ডাস্ট্রিতে?
অটোমোবাইল ইন্ডাস্ট্রি। সো আমাদের দুই ধরনের ডিলার পয়েন্ট ছিল। একটা হচ্ছে কোকো, কোম্পানি ওন্ড, কোম্পানি অপারেটেড, যেখানে আমরা আমাদের গাড়ি আমাদের নিজস্ব শোরুমে রাখতাম। আর একটা ছিল আপনার কোডো, মানে কোম্পানি ওন্ড বা ডিলার অপারেটেড। আর একটা ছিল ডোকো, ডিলার ওন্ড, কোম্পানি অপারেটেড। সো এরকম ছিল আর কি ডিলারের। সো সেখানে আমরা যেটা করলাম, নতুন একটা চ্যানেল নিয়ে আসলাম, প্রো ডিলার। সো ডিলারের এন্ডে আমার গাড়ি থাকবে, সো দে ডোন্ট নিড টু পে এনিথিং, দে উইল জাস্ট, সো দ্যাট আমার স্টকটা আমি তার কাছে রাখলাম, সো আমার ভিজিবিলিটি প্রোডাক্ট, দ্যাট উইল বি অন স্ট্র্যাটেজি, দ্যাটস আই কল ইজ এ পুশ স্ট্র্যাটেজি। সো অন দ্য আদার হ্যান্ড, এফএমসিজি তে যেটা করে, ইউনিলিভার বা রেকিড ব্যাংকেটাইজার, তারা যেটা করে, তারা কিছু তৈরি করে, রিটেইলার বা ডিস্ট্রিবিউটর তৈরি করে। So whatever they produce at their factory, they before producing the goods, they already take the orders from distributor, and they make them take the goods to their distributor warehouse. So things will be produced from my factory and it will go direct to the distributor, and all the retailers will take it from your distributor warehouse. So you will get a 2% to 3%. So that's called a push. So what that happens, the FMCG and like Lever and other BAT and also these other people, they don't keep any stock at their warehouse. They keep the things as per their distributors or depots and all those things. So that is another thing is for the push thing. So if I'm wrong or right, sir?
Yes, you're very correct. You're very correct. This is where they move the inventories close to the demand point, like through the distributor or retailer. They hold it close to the demand point, so that when there's a sudden surge in demand, they can move it to the you can see that if you're using the dealer-based automobile selling strategy, or you are using the strategies like the building your inventory and then you're trying to push them through the retailer, and you have got two different kind of scenarios. And of course, there can be it can be different across different markets and also different industries. What I mean by market means, like for example, the automobile market or FMCG goods market in Bangladesh, and it is in other parts of the world, maybe not the same way it works. It may be different. And also similarly, the automobile dealers also, they have got their different kind of market-based sales strategies. So they will be, of course, working around the market nature of the market or type of the market, and they will see that they don't want to unnecessarily hold the inventory, or they don't want to incur the cost of carrying the inventory unnecessarily when there is no opportunity to sell the product. So basically, it can change depending on the scenario where the company is operating and how the market will be able to connect to the customers in the best possible manner. Okay. So here again, if we look at the e-commerce supply chain, what do you see here? What would be the difference that you may notice in the traditional versus the e-commerce supply chain with regards to the Bullwhip? Can you hear me?
I think that
yes.
Sorry, can you hear me?
We can hear you. Will you mind to come again? What was
All
your
right.
question?
Okay, let me repeat the question. What I say that, can you see the slide in front of you? It is about the e-commerce supply chain.
Yes, we can see.
All right. Now, my question to you is, what is the difference that you see between this e-commerce supply chain and a traditional supply chain, where we have different type of value that we are trying to create for an e-commerce customer or a traditional customer? Now, with regards to the Bullwhip effect, what would be your thought that where we should place the inventory in the e-commerce supply chain?
Supplier sent. We should keep the inventory to the supplier sent.
Okay.
I think we should place the inventory nearer to customer location, meaning, as you mentioned earlier, the FBA of Amazon, they actually creating all those FBAs just to be close to the customer, because time is money, and the faster the reaction time to the customer demand, ensuring more and more bookings or more and more requirements by the customer for the same product. So it should be located nearer to customer location, at least geographically nearer. Suppose some goods are producing in Bangladesh, but their customer is in Europe or in US, so the warehouse or DC should be in Europe or US for the e-commerce.
Okay. What's your name? Sorry, I think
my name is Maruf.
Maruf. Thank you, Maruf. So this is what exactly, if you see Alibaba or Amazon, they are basically working around this model where, let's say they have their distribution center located they will categorize the inventories. Some are fast moving inventory, some are slow moving inventory. So the inventories that are fast moving and they are in demand on a regular basis, they will move these inventories to the warehouse or to the distribution center where they will receive the order and process the order. And that's why you'll see that in the US, Amazon has got their distribution centers, or we call it the distribution warehouse, basically, with huge conveyor belts, and it's like a huge plant, huge like a shed, and there are almost close to millions of square feet space. So these are mostly automated warehouses, and orders are received, processed, and it is shipped out. So what happens is Amazon has got again their warehouse in Mississauga in Canada, in Toronto, and also they have got their European warehouse, distribution warehouse in Australia. And they will not have their warehouses in every country, but they will regionally in a particular area where they locate, and they will try to cover multiple markets from there. This is one model. And the other model is some of the inventory, they will keep it with the supplier. And when the order received, like you can see this e-commerce yellow circle, this oval, you can see that this is the information that is shared by everyone in the supply chain, and everybody is connected in that interface. So some of the inventories, those are in the distribution center. When it is moved out to the customer, the supplier will know that something needs to be replenished. Similarly, the inventories that are with the supplier, which is not held at the distribution center, it will be directly shipped out by the supplier to the customer. So ultimate goal is to create the value for the customer. So what is the value here the Amazon or Alibaba is trying to fulfill is basically customer is looking for something in a given time, for example, 12-hour, 24-hour, 36-hour, whatever it may be. So they are asking for the product, but they want it to be delivered within the time. So this is what the customer is expecting that they will receive as a service, or they will receive as a value when they do the transaction. Again, when they buy the product from the online, the customers are very smart. They know what is the price and quality, everything of the product if they buy it in other places versus online. So they know everything, and they know the information, and they will they are very well informed before they make the choice and the order. So here, basically, this entire supply chain is working front to end, end to front, end to end, is basically to serve the value that the customer is looking forward to receive from this supply chain. So this supply chain is working like as a team, like a football team. They will work together, and they will try to find out what is the customer is looking for, and how the whole team can deliver right at the right time, at the right place, with the right customer, right product, and so on and so forth.
Dr. Asif, if you don't mind, I would like to add another thing of the benefit of the e-commerce. Definitely inventory, minimization is one of the key aspect of the e-commerce, but another hidden benefit comes to the suppliers, and that is the customers' behavior analysis. What they do, they put the AI in the e-commerce software, and they could understand actually what is the customer's actual requirement. Sometimes, suppliers, whatever buy, customer has no option except buying out of the list or within the list, but maybe customer doesn't like this. So say it's a car, so maybe supplier is not making any red car, but everyone is looking for red car. How they know? Because customer is browsing for the red car. So this information directly goes to the supplier. What I have seen that recent days, AI will guide you and give you the supplier's direct information that which products are most wanted and which type they are not finding in the supplier's market. So that information goes there. So unnecessary production also goes down. There are lots of product use in the market. There are lots of companies they are making, and they are bankrupt also because they did not actually understand the consumer behavior. So I think this e-commerce, the main strength is that they directly understand what customers is actually asking for.
Yes, thank you. Sorry, I forgot your name. Your name is Maruf, right?
My name is Karim.
Karim, right? Thank you, Karim. Cheers. So you have brought up a very important point. Actually, this is what also I teach something called Tableau. Have you heard of this name, Tableau? We teach we teach the customer analytics, and we have got three types of analytics. One is the predictive analytics, descriptive analytics, and the prescriptive analytics. So this is where we look at the customer behavior, and also we look at their other behavior, like when they browse the website. Like in North America, in Canada and the US, we have got something when you deal with like for example, in Bangladesh, we have Grameenphone. In US, Canada, we have got Bell, we have got AT&T. So when we call these service providers, they sometimes you'll not talk to the people. You'll talk to someone, we call them chatbot. And chatbot is basically, it is an artificial intelligence loaded robot. And they will talk to you like a human being, but they will exchange information, and they will also retain the information that they will use it when they will deal with you in your future call. So that's where we use the Tableau to do this customer analytics to find out what the customer is buying. They used to buy before, what they're buying now. And that's why when you go to the Amazon website, and you are, for example, you're looking for a book on supply chain, for example. And if you buy a book from supply chain from Amazon all the time, when you buy new book, always they will also use your previous purchase behavior to trend what you might like to buy next. So this is what is their strategy. Like for example, if you fly if you fly with Cathay Pacific, for example, which I fly always to Hong Kong and to Toronto, and sometimes if you fly in the business class, they will not even ask you what magazine you want to read. They know already. They will just look at the frequent flyer number, and they will track your previous behavior, and they will just bring the magazines that you usually read. Even same coffee, what kind of meals you order, what kind of seat you prefer. These are all basically there in the system, and they are using to facilitate the customer service. So it is across the board, even in the hospitals, what kind of problems that you usually come with, what kind of medications you receive, how frequently you come. And all these times, all this information is already now in use in different industries, which is basically AI-driven tools to facilitate the service provider to give you the best possible customer experience, which we call the CEM, Customer Experience Management. That means overall, when you go to a mall, or when you go to a hospital, or when you go to take a flight, or when you go for a travel or a tourism holiday destination, like what do you do, what you have been doing, what you prefer, what you don't like. All these things are already, they are trying to take into consideration before they create a package of services that could attract you and as well as keep you loyal to their business. Okay, any other questions apart from what we just discussed?
No question, sir, but I want to add something, sir.
Yes, please go ahead.
E-commerce সেক্ষেত্রে বলা হয়েছে যে আলোচনা থেকে, এখানে আমি একটু অ্যাড করতে চাই যে কাস্টমার বিহেভিয়ার, কাস্টমারের যে অ্যাটিটিউড, কাস্টমার পারচেজিং পাওয়ার এবং মার্কেট সেগমেন্টেশন, এইসব বিষয়গুলো সাপ্লায়ার চিন্তা করলে যে সমস্ত ব্যারিয়ার গুলো আছে সেগুলো অনেকটাই ওভারকাম করা সম্ভব। যেমন এক ভাই বলেছেন, যে রিজাউল করিম, উনি একটা সুন্দর কথা বলেছেন, আমি আই অ্যাপ্রিশিয়েট এখানে, যে কাস্টমারের অনেক সময় যে চাহিদা থাকে, তারা যে কোয়ালিটি প্রোডাক্ট দিচ্ছে হয় বিলো কোয়ালিটি অথবা টাইমলি দিতে পারে না। এটা আসলে কিছু ব্যারিয়ার বা কিছু অবস্ট্রাগল আছে। কিন্তু ই কমার্স ব্যবসাটা একটা প্রশ্ন, মানুষের যখন পারচেজিং পাওয়ার, মানুষের ধ্যান ধারণা, চিন্তা চর্চার একটা পরিমার্জিত রূপ আসছে, এবং লং টার্মে এটা আস্তে আস্তে একটা জায়গায় পৌঁছাবে, সেটা আমাদের বিশ্বাস। তবে যে ক্রেতা বা কাস্টমার বা বায়ারের যে পারচেজিং পাওয়ার, তার অ্যাটিটিউড সে চেঞ্জ করে, সে বাইং ডিসিশন চেঞ্জ করে, এই সমস্ত অ্যানালাইসিস করা খুবই প্রয়োজন রয়েছে, যেটার কারণে বাংলাদেশে ফার্স্ট ওয়ার্ল্ড কান্ট্রি গুলোতে এই সমস্ত বিষয়গুলো চিন্তা করে, যেমন আপনি কানাডার কথা বলেছেন, অন্যান্য দেশগুলোর কথা বলেছেন, সেটা ফার্স্ট ওয়ার্ল্ড কান্ট্রিতে সেটা অলরেডি তারা সেই জায়গাটা রিচ করে ফেলেছে, তারা গোল অ্যাচিভ করেছে। কিন্তু থার্ড ওয়ার্ল্ড কান্ট্রি বা দক্ষিণ এশিয়ার দেশগুলোতে কিন্তু আমরা যে অ্যাটিটিউড গুলো, কাস্টমারের যে বাইং ডিসিশন, কাস্টমারের যে পারচেজিং পাওয়ার, কাস্টমারের যে অ্যাটিটিউড চেঞ্জ করে এবং কাস্টমার সেগমেন্টেশন করে কাজ করার যে বিষয়গুলো, সেটা একটা গুরুত্বপূর্ণ বিষয় এখানে রয়েছে।
ইয়েস,
থ্যাংক ইউ স্যার।
এটা আসলে হবে, এটাও হবে, থার্ড ওয়ার্ল্ড কান্ট্রি গুলোতেও হবে, কিন্তু এটা হয়তো জাস্ট এ ম্যাটার অফ টাইম। It is going to happen very soon.
Yeah, yes.
Okay. All right. So when we look at the supply chain structure, we can see that there are different types of structure depending on the interactions they have with parties upstream and downstream in the supply chain. So when we have the supply network or supply chain network, where we involve multi-tier suppliers and multi-tier customers, it could be a very complicated supply chain network. Like for example, the Boeing or Airbus or Bombardier or any other manufacturing supply chain, where they are sourcing raw materials or materials from almost 3,000 to 4,000 suppliers, small or big materials, and that could create a network which could be very complicated and as well as very extended across multiple parties and in multiple geographic locations. So with that, I would like to wrap up here. When we deal with the supply chain management, and there are certain strategies that always supply chains try to accomplish, that they want to work around this strategy to accomplish some certain goals, like for example, a low cost or a quick response or high quality or differentiated products. So these are the different types of goals that the supply chains at times set, and they will configure the supply chain configuration. They will create according to that objective so that they can deliver the right value for the right customer. So just to finish up with this, I will touch the base of the SCORE model, the supply chain operations reference model. So this SCORE model is designed around 5 major activities: plan, source, make, deliver, and return. So when we deal with the plan, source, make, deliver SCORE model, each of the supply chain performance areas that you see in the middle column, they are measured with regards to some certain metrics. Like for example, the KPI, the performance indicators, are measured in terms of the order fulfillment. So one thing is called perfect order fulfillment, and also there is something called order fulfillment in full. So fulfillment on time and fulfillment or order fulfillment in full. So full fulfillment on time, or on time but not in full. That can make a difference in terms of the performance or the metrics of the supply chain. Again, the fulfillment cycle or replenishment cycle, average order replenishment cycle, or upside supply chain flexibility, or supply chain cost, or cash to cash cycle time. Do you understand what is a cash to cash? Anyone?
Yes.
What is cash to cash?
Okay, cash to cash cycle meaning when we sell a goods, how much time it required to get the cash and then reorder the raw material for the same product. So how quick we can we can get our money in our bank from the customer or dealer or supplier. That's the cash to cash cycle.
Okay, so when you deliver the product and when you receive the cash from your supplier or from your customer, right?
Yeah, that's right.
Okay. So with that, we will stop here, and there are some questions that you may read it on your own later on with regards to different type of supply chains across different industries, like for example, Zara, Toyota, Amazon. So there are a few questions that I have put into this 3 different type of supply chains where they have different issues to deal with, and you can try to think and ponder around these questions at your own free time. Okay. So with that, I think we are almost out of time, and I will stop here. And before we wrap up, any questions? Anyone?
One question, sir. Is slide গুলো কি আমরা পাবো কিনা স্যার? এটা পাওয়া দরকার স্যার।
Yes, I have given the slides. আমি স্লাইডটা অলরেডি দিয়ে দিয়েছি। ডক্টর মনিরের কাছে আছে এই স্লাইডগুলো। আপনারা ওনার থেকে পেয়ে যাবেন স্লাইডগুলো। ডক্টর মনির এখানে আছেন আপনি? Are you there, Dr. Munir? Okay, আমি ওনাকে বলে দেব স্লাইডগুলো আপনাদেরকে শেয়ার
Dr.
করব।
Asif, I have one comments about today's lecture.
Yes, please.
Yeah. You actually try to emphasize mostly on the global scale, but you know we are working in Bangladesh, and our initial expectation was to actually focus on the Bangladesh scenario. We are not a global player like you. So my point is that if you can emphasize on more functional approach, it will be more, fruitful for us. That is my comments. I am not agree. Maybe lots of people not agree with me, but my comments is simple. If you can dilute this SCM in functional approach, say what is the job of the logistics, what is the job of the commercial, sales, procurement, inventory management, quality inspection, this sort of functional approach, if you can embed in your lecture, I think it will help us to understand more, because
thank you very much. I really
this thing, actually these are all a story for us. We actually only see them in the online. For us, bread and butter is mostly in the local side. So hopefully see you next time. I don't know actually who is taking the next class or what. I have actually I enroll only 1 hour before your class starts. It's my fault. I'll take it.
No problem. No problem.
So next time, I think if you could relate little bit of your lecture to the Bangladesh context, it will help us to digest more. That is my
wonderful. Thank you so much, Karim. Right, Karim.
Yeah,
thank you so much. I really appreciate your comment, and definitely I understand your context, and I will try to. Actually, I have some data, and also I have some specific topics with regards to the supply chain scenario in Bangladesh, and definitely we will fine-tune those lectures that will be like relevant to your experience, how it works in Bangladesh. Okay, thank you very much. I really appreciate your comments. I really enjoyed the discussion with all of you. So with that, we will say goodbye here today, and look forward to see you again, inshallah, in the future.
Thank you, Mr.
Thank you.
Assalamu alaikum.
Thank you. Walaikum assalam. Khuda Hafiz.
Allah Hafiz.
Assalamu alaikum.
Assalamu alaikum. Walaikum assalam. Khuda Hafiz.
Assalamu alaikum. Rahmatullah.
Walaikum assalam.